With Jodie Whittaker making her Doctor debut this previous Sunday, we now have a brand new Post-Regeneration story, and that means that I am going to take a few minutes to look back at all of the Post-Regeneration stories and rank them here for you. And my only warnings are that this is completely my opinion. I'm just here to have fun. You will not agree with my list, and also spoilers abound. With that out of the way, let's get started with 12 entries. The main reason the Twin Dilemma ranks so low is because of the characterization of the Sixth Doctor, which I absolutely hated in this episode. I thought it was the worst characterization of the Doctor I've ever seen. In this episode, we see him strangle Perry and act really cowardly. It's just very hard to watch, and I don't think the story functions very well at all. I don't like the plot with the twins. There's just nothing I like about this episode. It's one of my least favorites ever. The reason that Time in the Running comes above the Twin Dilemma for me is because I don't think it fails as badly. I mean, nothing really works in this story for me. I don't think that Ronnie serves her very well. She's too over the top. I don't particularly like the characterization of the Seventh Doctor. I wasn't quite sold on him, but it wasn't as bad as strangling his companion in the last episode. I think it goes on for too long, and these creatures that I don't remember the name of look really goofy. It's not the worst episode, but it's not good by any means. I don't hate the Doctor Who movie, but there's so much that just doesn't work. This weird stuff like the Eye of Harmony and the plot element about him being half human, and it just feels so strange, and the way that the Master comes back is just so convoluted, and the plot line of him being transported to the home planet, it's just so weird, and I don't think Eric Roberts is a good Master whatsoever, and Paul McGann's pretty good in the part, but part of his performance feels so mixed, and we should have gotten a chance to explore that more, but unfortunately this was most of what he got on screen, which is a shame. Yeah, I just don't really like this movie whatsoever. Castroval was a bit of an odd one. I don't think it's bad by any means, but I don't think it's a fitting introduction to the Doctor. There's a lot of this episode where he's out, and yeah, so is he in the Christmas Invasion, but in this one, when he comes into the story, he just is kind of off in this way that is inherently not intriguing to me. It's rather disinteresting, and there's just not a lot about the story that I find interesting. The Master just kind of doesn't feel threatening, and there is some intriguing stuff at the end that's kind of confusing, but I do like. But overall, this story just doesn't interest me that much. This is also a fairly big jump from Castrovalva to Robot. There's a lot that I like about Robot. I really like Sarah Jane in this episode. I think she works really well. I love Tom Baker as the Fourth Doctor. I think he just nailed the part from the get-go, and it's so entertaining to watch him. And that's why I think this episode is pretty good, is because of Tom Baker. Like, he's so entertaining to watch, even though there is some stuff going on with the Robot and some weird green screen that doesn't quite work. It's just really entertaining to watch him in this part, so I really enjoy watching this episode. The Woman Who Fell to Earth was a strong episode for me. It's by no means my favorite Regeneration story, but it was a good way to start off this era and introduce us to the Doctor. Maybe we didn't get quite as much of the Doctor as I would have liked to have seen, but I really do like the version of the 13th Doctor that we get in this episode, and I do think it is really good, and it's sort of a standard story, but it's just done really well, and it makes for a rather entertaining piece, and while not my favorite, it is really enjoyable. I almost put Robot above this one, but I can't do that in good conscience, because while I don't love this episode as much as everybody else, it is really good. I do like the story. I think the Nest team work well in this episode. I like John Pertwee. He's kind of out of it for a lot of this episode, but when he's on, he is on, and he's really entertaining. And I like the Brigadier in this episode. I just think this episode works really well. Like, I wasn't bored through it at all, and it doesn't really waste any time. It's a lot of fun. It's good stuff. So Deep Breath was the first Post-Regeneration episode that I watched when it came out. I'd already seen several by that point, but I was catching up with the show, and this was the first one that I was watching when it came out, and it's pretty good. I think Peter Capaldi nails this part, and he's so good in it. I really like the human robot thing, and also the part where you have to hold your breath to get around. There's just a lot of really interesting stuff in this episode, and I just think it works really well, and maybe it goes on for a bit too long, but it's quite entertaining, and I'd happily put this one in today. The Christmas Invasion is not a perfect episode, but I really like it. I do wish there was a bit more of David Tennant playing the 10th Doctor, but when he does show up and he really owns the screen, then he just sells the part as the Doctor, and you instantly fall in love with him, or at least I did. And I do think this episode is fairly strong throughout, and it has a good amount of fun to it, and also a fair amount of drama. I really like the ending with the 10th Doctor, where his little speech, which is from The Lion King, and also the moment with the 6 words, "Don't you think she looks tired?" It's just a really great episode, and I quite enjoy it quite a bit. Power of the Daleks. I mean, this episode obviously is missing, so I'm judging it based off of the animated version, but I do really like it. And I think that Patrick Troughton kind of nails the part. I think he's really good in it, and he's really entertaining. And I don't really think that this episode is slow, even though it's 6 parts long. I really like the stuff that they did with the Daleks, the "I am your servant." There's just a lot of really entertaining stuff in this episode, and some kind of creepy stuff. I like it quite a bit. It's good fun. The 11th Hour is just such a great episode to me. Just so much in this episode works right from the get-go. We get the sense of fun and fairy tale nature, and Matt Smith just is so wonderful and delightful in this part. It's just so much fun to watch him on screen. And the plot, how he meets Amelia Pond and then accidentally messes up with a TARDIS, and instead of coming back 5 minutes later, he comes back 12 years later to meet the much older Amy Pond. And just the way that the plot focuses on him and really shows us the Doctor and just sells us out Matt Smith. And the very ending, when he says basically run, is just phenomenal. I really think this is an absolutely fantastic episode and a wonderful way to start off Matt Smith's era. Is Journey's End technically cheating? Yeah, kind of. Am I still gonna do it though? Absolutely, because I love this episode, and technically it is a post-regeneration story. We do get a regeneration, and while David Tennant does regenerate into himself, we get another Doctor. We get the Dr. Donna, and that makes for some really interesting stuff and some really heartbreaking conclusion. In this story, we get the end of Donna, and that is one of the saddest moments in all of Doctor Who, and I absolutely love it. And we also get this wonderful moment when they take Earth back home, and that is just so wonderful, and it just feels like the right way to conclude this 4th season of Russell T Davies' era and the 3rd season of David Tennant's era. And it's just such a wonderful episode, and I really absolutely love it. And if we're not counting this one, sure, my favorite's the 11th Hour, because that's a perfect introduction to a new Doctor that we're gonna spend some time with. But this one is just so good, and it does classify technically as a post-regeneration story, at least for me, so I have to include it. And if you want to yell at me for that, that's fine. Please don't be too mean though. So yeah, that's my list, my ranking. Please feel free to give me your ranking, or even some of your favorites, least favorites if you're feeling that way. Anyway, that's going to be all for today, folks. If you join me shortly, I should be reviewing the 3rd episode called Rosa of Series 11, depending on when this video goes live. But that's how things should be playing out. So yeah, hopefully you will be joining me for my weekly Series 11 reviews. Should be fun times all around. And that's going to be all for today, folks. I hope to see you around shortly. Thanks for watching. Take care, and have a lovely day.